Hey guys, Ratsmah here, and I'm here to talk to you about what I want to call the Anti-4 meta. So what I've been seeing with the arena lately is that my 3-drops and 4-drops have not been getting value, and it's been getting more difficult. And I think if you pay close attention to your own games, you might be noticing something very similar. So the reason why things like Chillin Yeti and Senjin and Spider Tank, which are all really good 3-drops and 4-drops, are not performing that well is I think the arena meta is too fast in some games and also very slow in other games. So the problem this brings up is that in the very fast games, the 1s and 2s seem to be rushing you down too fast for the 3s and 4s to matter, and also in the very long games where you're stuck in a top deck scenario, your 3s and 4s get anti-value from cards that are commonly picked, 5 mana 5/6s, pit fighters, and even cards that are offered at a bonus, things like Ethereal Peddler, which is a 5 mana 5/6 class card for Rogue, and very popular common cards, common neutrals like Bog Creeper and Kraken. And because these late game cards get like 2 and 3 for ones for these mid game cards, and these early game cards a lot of the time rush you down so fast that the mid game cards don't matter. And when they do, when you can successfully play like a Spider Tank or a Chillin Yeti on 4, that tends to be your first counter threat. And what that often does even is, it's the first threat. Usually it's going to eat the Fireball. It's going to eat like a Shadow Bolt. Any early or mid game removal is going to be hit into that. And a lot of the time, your opponents are waiting for something to remove so they can play their curve and play all their mana crystals. And even in the late game, like I said, in the top deck scenario, you're getting 2 and 3 for 1 for these mid game cards. And I don't want to talk about Mage in this video, but these cards are also prime targets for Firelands Portal. So yeah, this is what I call the anti-4 meta, and what I've been experimenting with on my own stream is I've been drafting decks with as little 4-drops and 3-drops as possible. Trying to hit maybe like 2 or 3 4-drops in most of my decks, and it's been working out somewhat well. It hasn't been terrible. I haven't had enough runs to actually conclusively say give a statement about it, but it is actually surprisingly working. It is surprisingly working with currently I have 7 runs down, and I am not seeing too big of a change for better or for worse with my runs. But the fact that it's not making my runs worse is extremely surprising. If I had a little bit more practice with this kind of drafting style of only drafting early game and late game, I think I could probably beat my standard playstyle's win rate. So I mean, we will keep trying at that, and I'm not sure how specific I should get into it with this video, but pretty much the strategy is, you want really high quality late game cards that get value on your opponent's mid game. So we're getting those value tempo plays in the late game from things like Kraken, Bog Creeper. Those are pretty much insta picks now, even over quality 4s. And we're looking for very flexible early game. Things like Babbling Book, Mad Bomber, Flame Juggler, Swashbuckler. Any cards that you can play with 1 or 2 mana, that when you top deck, right, when you go into that top deck scenario, which a lot of our games are going into, are still relevant. So you have a Mad Bomber in your hand or a Flame Juggler, it's gonna do just okay. And if you look at it from the perspective of a lot of my games do go to top deck, you make that statement and you say, oh, I got this 2-drop that's a 3/2. I got Pompous Thespian, a 2 mana 3/2, and I have a Senjin. A lot of the time, the Pompous Thespian is going to help you when you're getting rushed down early, but also it's going to do as much as a Senjin would against something like a Bog Creeper. but you're playing it for 2 mana less. So it gives you that flexibility to make high tempo plays even with 2 cost cards in the late game, so you can like flood out when you're facing a situation where, you know, this minion has way too much attack. It's going to kill any mid-game minion the same as it's going to kill anything with 2 health, right? Pretty much Senjin and Pompous Thespian are the same in that scenario, is what we're getting at here. And what I've also noticed happening is that these 2-drops are actually quite relevant in the mid game. Like I would play like a 2-drop, like a Mad Bomber and my hero power on 4 instead of just playing something like a Chillwind Yeti. And a lot of the time is that is actually better than just playing Yeti. I'm solving 2 things instead of going all in on one minion, so I'm not playing into my opponent's fireball or hard removal on those mid game turns. What I'm doing instead is I'm removing a little bit with the help of something like Flame Juggler and my hero power, and I'm also developing a small threat. And the game plan mostly is to get my opponent into the top deck scenario where I have very flexible 1 and 2 drops that, you know, still do a little bit of something in the late game and in the top deck scenario, but also I'm going to have drafted a lot of late game, a lot of high value late game, so when I do get into the top deck war, I will be at an advantage. And with just a little bit of smart trading, it tends to go really well. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, the win condition, it seems that a lot of people are used to the old style of people pushing very high tempo plays on like turns 4, 5, 6, but you don't see that anymore because that gets punished heavily by things like Bog Creeper, or even like, you know, Firelands Portal now. If you try to push on those turns, you're going to get pushed back and all of a sudden you're out of steam. So I don't see a lot of those, and because, you know, we're seeing these, you know, high tempo, like hyper aggressive starts, and you know, it's either that or your opponent tries to win with a really drawn out game. You know, this kind of drafting style where, you know, you're not drafting mid game that gets owned by your opponent's late game, and you're drafting high quality early game or like flexible early game that's still good in the late game. You don't tend to get rushed down as much, and also when you do get stuck into those top deck scenarios, you tend to do a little bit better because your deck is suited for the top deck, and pretty much you're drafting a deck that's just going to be really set up to succeed in that environment. That's going to be all for me. If you want to see me kind of like theorycraft and mess around with this strategy that I'm still working on, still trying to perfect, you can always catch me on my streams. I stream every day, and if you have any questions, just leave them in the comments. And thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you guys next week. Bye bye.